Everyone, good evening. We're going to get started tonight. It's a rainy evening. The regular meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is called to order at 6:05 p.m. on March 22nd, 2022. This regular business meeting of the Osseo School Board is being conducted in person. This meeting can be monitored electronically by streaming online from the district website. An archived recording of tonight's meeting will also be available on the district website. Seated in front of you this evening from my left to your right are Director Heather Douglas, Director Thomas Brooks, Director Jackie Mosqueda-Jones, myself, Kelsey Dawson-Walton, Director Tanya Simons, and Director Tamara Grady. Also present in the boardroom are Superintendent Corey McIntyre, Cabinet members Steve Fliss, Brian Severson-Hall, Anthony Paternos, Laurel Anderson, along with our student representatives, Cal Thorson, Maple Grove Senior High, Faith Sua, Osseo Senior, Hanaya Dabney, Park Center, and our newest student representative, Santonio Miller, from the Osseo Area Learning Center. We'll ask Antonio to introduce himself when the students share their reports. General Counsel Tim Palmatier is not in attendance due to illness. Informational items for first reading of policies previously published with tonight's agenda will be moved to our regular business meeting in April. Those of you who can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Brooks, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, are there any additions to the agenda? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So
Is there a second?
second.
Motion by Director Jones, seconded by Director Brooks to accept the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Next agenda item is student school board representatives reports. Cal, can you please share your report?
Hi, I'm Cal. I'm a senior at Maple Grove Senior High. So today I just wanted to give a little bit of update on the ending of winter sports and startup of spring sports with obviously the warm weather has been really nice. Our hockey team got second in state, which was awesome. It was awesome to see students come out and support our hockey team even on a day where we had school, where I'm sure a lot of people were happy to skip some school to get out for the final game. Our adapted floor hockey got third in state, so that was very impressive. Track and field actually got to have their first meet down at St. John's, and then they'll be having a meet at Osseo on Friday this week, which they might have to shovel some snow off the track for, but hopefully they can get that. Other than that, just spring sports starting has been really exciting. For myself, it's baseball. Nice weather has allowed us to practice outside some days. Everyone's just really excited to get ready for spring break after this week. It's nice to have a little bit of break and just re-prepare for the last trimester of the school year. And then also juniors and seniors are really just excited for getting ready for prom and all the prom preparations.
Thank you. Faith, could you please share your report?
Oh, I'm a little bit hoarse from the basketball game. Yeah. So I'm Faith Sua. I'm a senior at Osseo Senior High School, and I'm gonna take a look at our basketball team. So our basketball record was 21-6. We were ranked number 7 in the state. We beat Maple Grove once. And then we lost to Park Center twice. We actually ended up playing Park Center for the section finals, which we unfortunately lost again. And we actually got second place for our sections, and it was a bittersweet moment. It was good to play against our rivals. It was very competitive. It was electric in the room, and that's why I lost my voice. But it was also very, bitter, because as a senior, seeing the basketball players cry, it was, but we get to cheer up on our rivals while they're in state. Something else that I would like to mention would be the meeting that we had last week for athletes. We had a discussion about racism on and off the court, field, or whatever situation, whatever they play, and it was a very good meeting because we got insight on how athletes feel, especially African American students or people of color, and it was just refreshing having a safe area for everybody to express themselves without, teachers and coaches and outsiders, and it was a very good thing, and it was hosted by Real Talk, and I actually got to monitor the meeting, and it was very nice. And yeah.
Thank you. Hanaya, could you please share your report?
Hi, my name is Hanaya. I'm a sophomore at Park Center. And first, I would like to acknowledge how good our athletics have been doing. So first, 3 wrestlers went to state, and then our Park Center boys basketball team won 5 4A section finals, and I'm very excited. Today was the state game, and they won their quarterfinals, which is very fun, especially to cheer at. And then also, Park Center Comp Cheer got second in nationals, which was really exciting and fun. So next, I'm going to talk about what we've been doing in advisory. So first, we've been doing something called our personal project, which we start our personal project the second try of freshman year, and then it goes into second try of sophomore year. And for our personal project, you pick a topic that you're interested in or anything that you really like to do, and then you research that topic. After you research that topic, you choose how you'd like to present it. So some people bring food, some people do clothing, some people make a Google slide, or some people paint. So it's really open to whatever you would like to do. And then after you figure out how you want to present it, then the freshmen, they visit your classrooms and they see your personal projects for inspiration. And it's also nice to share about what you've learned in your topics and educate other people on what you've learned. And also, we had a college fair. And at the college fair, we made our own personal barcodes, which made it easier for the colleges to get our information. Instead of filling out cards, I know that can take a long time, so we have barcodes. So if you're interested in a college, you would go to the college and they would scan your barcode, and then the barcode would give them your information and you would get all of their information. So it made it a very easy and quick process. Thank you.
Thank you, that's awesome. Santonio, welcome to your first school board meeting, and we are so happy you're here tonight. Could you give us a brief introduction of yourself and share any report that you have?
All right. Hello, I'm Santonio Miller. I'm a senior from Osseo Area Learning Center. So basically, the reason I wanted to join the board or on the board was to make a change or to be able to have a voice to create an impact or a positive thing to affect the next generation going on. And knowing that this is a new program, it's good to know that, I can be one of the people to help out, to help start it going. And recently at school, we've been talking about the activities for Spirit Week. We've been trying to get more of the students involved, to have them enact and take part up in it, including with dressing up. We have teacher swap day, so the students will basically switch clothes with the teachers, switch around that whole little dress up thing. And then we have gala day where, everybody can dress up the best they want, whether it's dressing up in formal wear or dressing up in hip hop wear, just to bring out, that type of spirit. And then we have our OELC day, basically like a school day to celebrate our school and to have people get involved and to show their spirit. That's pretty much all I have to say. I just want to say thank you. It's good to be on the board. It's good to, hear and to see everything.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, you all lift my spirits so much, and you bring so much joy to our board meetings, so I'm so glad each of you are here. The student representatives review the board meeting packet in advance and are prepared to answer questions from board members on issues to seek input from students related to agenda items for this evening's meeting. So board members, do any of you have agenda items for which you'd like any of their input? You guys?
I'll go. No, I'm just giving someone a chance. You go ahead. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the referendum presentation for today for the revoke and reinstate a new referendum, the levy.
I would say just support, obviously, because anything that can make our schools better and just honestly help teachers to do their jobs and make that their main focus is just great. So I think that benefits the whole school, benefits teachers, benefits students, where everyone can just be focusing on school and not have to worry about anything outside of school.
So I'm in Real Talk, and we've actually been talking about stuff like this, and we feel like it's a good thing to condemn racism and everything, and like just showing that you guys have support. But another aspect we were looking at was more of it not just being a paper thing, but more of like an action. We can see the differences. We can tell that this isn't the same school district, or this isn't the same, like things won't repeat itself. We know that sometimes it's easier said than done, but we actually would like to see differences in school, differences in like, just like support, and yeah.
Faith, do you feel like the Real Talk meetings you had this last week is a start to doing things? And you're talking about the anti-racism athletic resolution we have coming up. Do you feel like there's a start to that, or do you feel like there's something that we're missing the boat on?
So we feel like, because we talked about it in Real Talk, and we feel like it shows that we're moving in like a direction. But another thing that students and I were like a little bit frustrated on was the lack of timing it took. Like there's been racial incidents that's been going on since 2015, since before, and it's like we don't want to enter school and make it seem like these things aren't going on. Or I understand like teachers like to shield students from it, but once we leave school, turn on the TV, get on social media, we see those things. So we just want to know that, like, we don't want it to be like we see other districts doing stuff, so we want to do it now. We want to be like a leading district for us to be able to, for other districts to look at us and be like, oh, District 279 did this. This is a good thing. We should go on and try to do it too. And we want to be like, the head, like the leaders and stuff like that, because nobody wants to come to school and feel unsafe. Nobody wants to, because if things are happening outside of school, they're not going to change just because we're in a school atmosphere. Students are not going to be connected to want to learn if things are still going on, if people that look like them are being treated differently. And things happen in school as well, comments from other students, things that teacher might not mean, but they do say. So like, we just want to see like actions and stuff like that, more so like, settings, groupings, like where we're able to communicate with teachers and stuff like that, for students to actually feel safe, or just to know that once they enter school, we're not gonna feel like ignored, more like we're heard, we're seen, we're trying, we wanna make a change.
I appreciate that. Faith, my other question was, there's two things on for action today, and the other thing is asking the voters to up the levy, so for a little more money for our district. Do you see that relates to, because this is the question that Cal answers, I'm going to go down the rest of you if you don't mind. Do you see that related to what we were just talking about? How do you see, how do you feel about that, us asking the voters for some more money, and where do you think that might be helpful, or what would you say, please make sure that this is still happening, or this is starting to happen? So
that's actually a good question, because we have a lot of discussions. So I remember one time we were in the CRC and was talking to an administrator, and we're talking about how money is used in our district and how it's distributed among each schooling. And we're just talking about the disadvantages that some people have. And it's also interesting because I did a project on redlining and how it affects education, how it affects schooling, and how certain areas are increasing, like certain schools get more money than other schools. So I would just personally say that each school has a level playing field, and each school, whether it be the OLC, Park Center, Maple Grove, Osseo, each school has every student has the opportunity and the possible information to, for us, all of us to have equal playing field, instead of somebody being, not because you guys want to do it, not because like you guys were trying to show a difference in the school, but history itself has done it. So like everybody, like we can rewrite history, like, okay, all of our schools have the same playing field. Each school is getting the same amount of money. Each school is getting the same advantages and everything else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is good because I feel like if the cost goes up, then it will like increase the pay for teachers, but also the money could go elsewhere, so you don't have to cut off any positions, and you could maybe also hire even more positions. Like, we have good technology, but I feel like if the price was like decreased, then you would have to cut off other positions, and also the cost can go towards like other things like activities or athletics or even academics, like scholarships and more things like that, and more opportunities for students. So I think this is good.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any? Did you want to say something? Okay, because you know you're good.
Faith actually answered the question I was going to actually ask about the other action item that we have, which is the resolution, what's this exact title? Resolution denouncing racial harm in athletics and calling for renewed athletic codes of conduct that value each and every scholar. Could you guys speak to that, or does anybody have, and Faith, if you have more to say, I'd love to hear, but anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I'd actually like to add to my answer that I gave last week. So last week I just talked about how it was sickening, to see this type of behavior from students at sports events that I knew I wouldn't want representing my school. But even past that, I'd say, the first step was taking that step of saying, this is unacceptable and we need to make sure that we're enforcing this at sporting events. But even going past that, it's having these programs like Real Talk in school that we can have students feel represented and feel like their environment just allows them to learn more about themselves and learn more about their classmates, where they feel that they're in a safe environment and they don't have to worry about that type of stuff at sporting events.
Anybody else?
It's okay, not everybody.
That's okay.
That's okay. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you. No? All right.
You did your school's proud today, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our whole
Thank
district
you.
proud. Thank you. Yeah. All right. You guys are welcome to leave if you would like to say, but I know you have a very full schedule. All right, the next agenda item is audience opportunity to address the school board. I'll review a couple of guidelines for those that are going to speak tonight. During audience opportunity to address the school board, I will call on your speaker, just one tonight. Submitted a speaker card. We ask the speakers to keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or staff to follow up as necessary. Complete guidelines for public participation are provided on the meeting materials table and on the school board website section of the website. When I call your name, please come to the microphone, state your name, topic, and whether or not you are a district resident. And we have one, Christy Ekdahl, this evening.
Good evening, Chair Dawson Walton, Board Superintendent Super McIntyre. You can tell the kind of day that I have had with fourth graders. I am a teacher at Oakview Elementary School, recovering from today. Here. The time is up. It's time for us to settle a fair contract now.
Okay. Our next agenda item is a superintendent's report. Superintendent McIntyre.
All right. Let's all be thankful it wasn't 5 degrees cooler today and we had 10 inches of snow out there, so we'll take the spring rain. Thank you, Chair Dawson Walton, and good evening, board members. As you all know, a regular part of the superintendent's report is to share points of pride in our district. And points of pride celebrate student, staff, and community members who are contributing to the accomplishments of our mission, which is to inspire and prepare each and every scholar with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. And tonight I have members of our district cabinet here to assist in sharing some of those examples from the last few weeks. So I'll first turn over to Steve Flisk, Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Schools.
Good evening. In the area of achieving dreams, 25 Osseo area school scholars received Scholastic Arts and Writing Awards in 2021. These students' works, including paintings, photography, writing, and poetry, were chosen for exemplifying the award's core values of originality, technical skill, and the emergence of a personal voice or vision. The Scholastic Arts and Writing Award annual competition is for teens in grades 7 through 12, focusing on visual arts and writing. Congratulations to our artists and writers. 4 teams from Osseo Middle School and Osseo Senior High School competed at the VEX State Robotics Tournament in St. Cloud, March 3rd through the 4th. One team, the Osseo Mechanical Mayhem, finished runner-up and qualified for the World Championships. Coach John Liccardi said, "I am very proud of all the work of these teams put in. But it's not just the 4 teams that got to state. We had 4 more teams that poured their soul into the robot as well. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. That is why I love competition through activities and athletics so much. Congratulations to all the teams and good luck to the Osseo Mechanical Man." On February 25th, Fair Oaks Elementary School hosted their first Winter Olympics. The entire school worked together to create events that the students could participate in, like in hockey, luge, sled races, and even a dance party. Brian?
Across the district, many of our athletes are finding successes in their postseasons. The Park Center boys basketball team are the Class 5 4A section champions and have advanced to this week's state tournament, as we heard earlier. Their first game was this morning against Andover High School. I'm happy to report that they were victorious 74-60. Next, they'll play Eastview at 6 p.m. on Thursday night. Visit the Minnesota State High School League website for information on how to watch it. Go Pirates! All right, Maple Grove Senior High School Crimson Adapted Floor Hockey Team placed 3rd at the state tournament. Osseo Senior High School senior Jacob Meissner finished his high school wrestling career as a 2-time state champion of Class 3A 220-pound division. Park Center Senior High School senior Rodiat Adaduntan advanced to the first ever Minnesota State High School League sanctions girls state wrestling tournament, bringing home a silver medal. Maple Grove Senior High boys and girls hockey teams advanced to the state 2A tournament. The boys team placed 2nd and the girls team placed 6th. Congratulations on a great season to all Osseo area high school athletes. 14 Osseo area school scholars won awards at the Northwestern High School Art Exhibition put on by North Hennepin Community College in Brooklyn Park. The exhibit was featured February 14th through March 3rd at the Joseph Gazula Fine Arts Gallery. During the exhibition, gallery visitors voted on their favorite artwork and winners were selected for all of the area high schools. Congratulations to these 14 artists on this award. Our next area is contributing to community. Crestview Elementary School provides leadership opportunities for students to grow into global citizens. School counselor Kelly Booth Rudd oversees the student leadership group and finds ways to incorporate sustainability and social justice into the lives of the scholars. The students are split into groups with responsibilities geared to help the school, local, and global communities. Students demonstrate leadership skills by mentoring their younger peers, and they learn more about their local community through recycling. After several weeks, students rotate roles so all students get the opportunity to lead.
In the area of lifelong learning, middle and high school students of Osseo area schools came together for an opportunity to celebrate, learn, and experience music at the District Jazz Festival on March 15th. In a day of performances, critiques, and clinics held at Maple Grove Senior High School, students came together over their love of jazz. Peter Buller, who's been band director at Maple Grove Senior High for 9 years, said, "Everything that we do in our different groups is amplified in jazz band. Jazz band is more of a vessel for culture building in our programs. It's about getting more kids involved and engaged." 3 Park Center Senior High School students celebrated the completion of the International Baccalaureate Extended Essay on March 15th. The Extended Essay is a self-directed research project that culminates in a 4,000-word essay. It's a requirement for the full IB diploma student, and it is sent to an examiner for final grading. Mila Folks wrote her extended essay on how does Harper Lee portray morality in Maycomb through Scouts' changing perspective on Atticus. Ilhan Degadoom wrote her essay on the topic, how does Margaret Atwood portray power through the use of language in The Handmaid's Tale. Bright Unane wrote his extended essay on to what extent does Jorge Luis Borges and Walt Whitman's poems reflect their social, political, or religious beliefs. Congratulations to these students. Basswood Elementary School hosted a math and science night on March 15th where students could participate in math and science activities. Students moved from table to table, playing games like Mancala, breaking a hidden code, trying their hand at brain teasers and quick math games, building a catapult, and learning about a pig heart dissection. Many of the tables were manned by members of the Crimson Robotic team from Maple Grove Senior High School. Coding the Cosmics, the Maple Grove Senior High coding and robotics team, made up of Basswood alumni, was at the event showing off their robot and letting students try their hand at driving it around. Cadence Grand, a 9th grade student of the Coding the Cosmics team, hopes that by showing elementary students what they will do to get them interested in robotics in the future. Grand said, "We're an all-girls team, and there's not a lot of girls in robotics. At competitions, most of the kids who win those higher awards are boys' teams, so it's really important for us to get kids interested, especially girls."
Zanewood Community, a STEAM school, partnered with the Works Museum to offer a virtual engineering night for scholars and families on March 8th. The event was broken into 4 sessions for students to learn about Rube Goldberg's contraptions and paper machines. Nearly 30 scholars in pre-kindergarten through 2nd grade learn that what these machines were and spend time using household items to create simple machines. This year, students and teachers were ecstatic for the opportunity to put on theater show. Scholars put on a show that, despite its name, was far from flat. Performances of the musical adventures of Flat Stanley Jr. took place on March 11th through the 13th. 5th grader Elena Baker, who has never performed in a musical before, was excited about the opportunity to play Stanley's mother. She loves getting to sing, dance, and meet new people. She said, "I've never done something like this before. I've just heard over the years that it has been so much fun learning dances, and I thought it would be a ton of fun." Students at Maple Grove Middle School delivered exceptional performances of Still Life with Iris March 17th through the 19th. This drama featured a magic mystery and important message about memories. Jeanette Bermudez, an 8th grader student, played the lead role of Iris. Bermudez said, "I hope people watching will be more creative and imaginative in everything they do and hold on to their memories because they could go away." In the category of mission-driven employees, during National School Work Week, March 7th through the 11th, Osseo area schools recognized the role school social workers play in providing additional support for students to achieve academic success. Kendra Coleman, social worker at Park Center Senior High, shared how she responds to mental health and behavior challenges. Coleman said, "I just really love working with the teenagers and their resiliency and their outlook on life. Thank you to all school social workers for all that you do for our scholars." Another of our mission-driven employees is Kevin Sheberl, a music teacher at 279 Online. Most people think of music classes with instruments and singing, but scholars at 279 Online learn about music in a unique way. His class of about 20 students joined Making Music through Google Meets to learn more about the compositional elements of everyday music they love. Sheberl said, "It took me a while to fully let go of the need to have performance ensemble classes online. Connecting compassionately with scholars is important for a positive learning environment and their development."
All right, thank you to the team. And finally, in the superintendent's report tonight, just a couple reminders regarding our district calendar and events coming up. So There's a COVID-19 vaccine opportunity in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Health at Crestview Elementary School from 4:30 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. Details are on our website at restart.district279.org. March 25th is the last day of school before spring break, and then we will return April 4th for the first day of school after spring break. And April 15th, looking ahead, is conference release day for all pre-K through 12th grade scholars, so no school on that day. Chair Dawson Walton, that concludes my superintendent's report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next agenda item is school board reports. I'll start with Director Douglas. Do you have any?
Yes, DPAC met again, and they are getting really close. They will be presenting to us actually next month. I believe there's one meeting between now and then before they actually do the presentation. So everybody's finalizing who's going to be speaking and preparing their presentations for us. One thing I find really interesting and exciting is that while each subcommittee worked individually, there's been a lot of crossover in the things that have come up to the surface of recommendations. So I think that our list of recommendations, while each subcommittee will have their own, there'll be a lot of alignment between them, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of alignment to a lot of the other work that we're already embarking on in our district. So I think it's going to be a really exciting presentation. So yeah.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Yes, I just have one report, which is the Rice Committee report. So it's interesting, our last two school board meetings, including the professional development session we had last week, talked a lot about communication, and that was the focus of the Rice Committee. I mentioned this in the last school board business meeting, and similarly today, they've been talking a lot about the reporting of harm, the way that the district is collecting that information, the way that we're investigating, following up on it, engaging with parents in that process, sort of all of those things. So they have been continuing to take a look at that. The conversation actually went even deeper and went into our communication plan, which I don't believe the public's seen the communication plan yet, but they actually went pretty in depth about the communication plan and just some of the needs that we need to address as it relates to the website and accessibility, language needs, all of those things. And I guess I can save some of it. They will be also presenting to the school board some feedback and recommendations, I would say, within the next couple of months. Before they do, I believe they'll be meeting with Kay and Anthony from technology to finalize those recommendations, but I would, look forward to that in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Dr. Mosquito?
Yeah, I have a couple of updates. District 287 just passed a resolution against racial harm in athletics, supporting the other districts. And then there was a presentation on reintegrating students back into their home districts and what that looks like. That's all available on their website. And also the beginning of using some solar arrays for getting power for the schools. And then we had a Northwest Suburban Integration School District meeting last Wednesday, and mostly on that were some updates on some policies, just updating with current recommendations from the State School Board Association, and then also legal bits, and then there were updates on enrollment. I just want to keep encouraging people to look into Zane Wood STEAM School. There's plenty of openings, and they're doing amazing work, as we saw in the points of pride.
Thank you. Director Stevens.
Yeah, I have 3 reports. I'll start with the policy committee report. So the school board policy committee met here at the ESC at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 8th. The board members in attendance included Thomas Brooks, Tamara Grady, and myself, Tanya Simons. Additionally participating was Superintendent McIntyre, our Executive Director of Technology, Anthony Padros, Coordinator of Information Systems, Gerald Edwards, and General Counsel Tim Palmetier. During the meeting, the committee discussed the following policies: Policy 504, Student Dress and Appearance; Policy 505, Student Cell Phone and Technology; Policy 503, Attendance and Absences; Policy 510, School Activities. So we had quite a full meeting that evening. Revisions to Policy 504, Student Dress, and Policy 505, Student Cell Phones, were originally discussed at the policy meeting in December. After further discussion at this last meeting, the committee agreed to move these two policies forward for first reading. The committee also considered the administration's proposed rewrite of Policy 503 pertaining to student attendance. District administration has recommended changes because the current policy is nearly 20 years old, and there's a strong interest, it's very outdated, a strong interest in ensuring that student absences and tardies are recorded in a uniform manner across the district, across elementary and secondary schools. The policy committee agreed with the proposed changes to the policy and moved this policy forward to first reading. Finally, the committee reviewed Policy 510, School Activities, and it agreed that no changes to the policy were required at this time. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled to be held at the ESC on Tuesday, June 7th at 4:30 p.m. And additionally, please note the committee is considering adding an additional meeting before July 1st in order to finish its review of policies in the 500 series pertaining to students. Any additional meetings of the policy committee will be provided as notice on the district website. Policy committee meetings are open to the public, and community members are encouraged to attend. And then moving on to the 279 Board of Trustees. That was primarily an operational meeting, but I did want to highlight, I don't recall if we've mentioned this in a previous board meeting, the night out to enjoy the show raised $71,791 in total revenue, which was the highest number according to since at least 2018, so that was really fantastic. And the net is less than that, but we did net $35,500, which was a great turnout. So there's still several fundraising activities taking place, especially as we think about the year-end campaign. So you can always, for the members of the public and those watching, there's always an opportunity to contribute, and all of those dollars go to providing grants that support the classrooms across our district to provide unique opportunities that really wouldn't otherwise be provided. Okay, one more report. Really quickly, CETA, the Center for Innovation in the Arts, met earlier this month, and so that's a joint partnership really led by North Hennepin Community College, and our district participates on that as a shared interest in what that opportunity might bring. So right now, that organization and a committee of folks are kicking off a capital campaign. So there's going to be a lot of work going on to better communicate what the objectives of the effort are, and to begin to raise capital from different private sources, as well as to communicate with our different legislators on what we need from funding from the state. That's all I got.
Thank you. Director Grady.
I continued with teacher negotiations on the contract. And then I attended for the first time the Community Education Advisory Council. They've done a great job of pulling grants together to hold the program together throughout COVID. We reviewed their mid-year budget, and summer enrollment is happening. Enrichment looks good, and they are also enrolling in childcare. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have, for the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, we voted on our 3 legislative priorities for this session, which is the stabilized education funding, and then there's many bullets under that. Support student mental health and personalized learning, and then increase and diversify education workforce. And I think the really emphasis right now is just the Association of Metropolitan School Districts just calling on the governor and the legislators to stabilize Minnesota's education funding system by fully funding special ed, English learning programs, and then indexing the formula to inflation. So that's a lot of focus on that. So all your legislators, everyone, okay. So, the next agenda item is the consent agenda. Board members, are there any items that you would like to remove for separate consideration? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Director Simon, seconded by Director Grady to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. First action item is a resolution relating to revoking and replacing the existing referendum revenue authorization of the school district. Information will be shared by Superintendent McIntyre, Kay Galella, and John Morset, and Anthony Patterns.
All right, thank you, Chair Dawson. I'll start us off, and thank you, board members. So tonight before you is an action item on a resolution relating to revoking and replacing the existing referendum revenue authorization by the school district. By way of background here, we'll kind of cover the key elements that you saw from the work session here recently. Voters in Osseo area schools approved a 10-year operating and technology levies that provide operating funds to support programming and services and capital funding for technology, which are due to expire after the 23-24 school year. Replacing these levies with similar functionality this coming November allows the district to maintain current levels of service without the need to enter a significant budget reduction process, reducing that level of service to our scholars. So as I shared at the last board work session, one of your many important jobs is setting the course for financial stability in the district, and we talked about maybe the most important job you have together as a board. Our district hasn't been through a referendum in a while, as these 10-year operating and capital levies expire again after the 23-24 school year. So it's a big decision for you as a board and for our community. After hearing a lot of information at the recent work session earlier this month, the goal tonight is just really to set the direction for our community. So tonight, as you vote on the proposed resolution, we'll briefly highlight those key items central to the operating and capital levies. As we've looked to the future around facilities and learning, our planning has been themed around building a better future. The work originally stemmed out of the future enrollment and capacity needs identified through the Enrollment and Capacity Management Advisory Committee, or ECMAC, and has grown to encompass both learning and facility needs. And as we started with facilities, we had to ask the question, what should learning look like? That question led our planning teams to explore what future learning looks like and then discuss what are the facility needs to foster that learning environment. This has included reviews of next generation learning spaces, career and technical education programming, and facility use. Moving our work forward, building a better future is really going forward in two phases. Phase one will focus on the learning needs. That will likely be two questions, as we discussed tonight, centering on operating and capital projects, or commonly known as our technology levy. And then phase two is focusing on the facility needs and will likely be brought forward at a future point in time as one question. A way to help explain the difference between the two is, as I think Anthony said so well last time, levies are for learning and bonds are for building or facilities. And it's an easy, simple way to try to keep those two things straight. This leads us to potentially two referendums, one likely here in November of 22 and then the other possibly within a couple years. This next slide has kind of the timeline I wanted to just review briefly. Tentative timeline if a referendum were to be held this fall for operating capital projects. Item 1 here reflects the research phase that has been done. We're working on steps 2 and 3, which include referendum planning and then the board intent or action. If the board's intent is to move forward at this time with your vote this evening, an informational campaign would begin this spring and with a presentation coming to our next work session. District and site level teams would be formed and training would also happen this spring. An additional brush fire survey would be planned for early this fall to identify any unexpected obstacles or impact of any issues that have arisen since the previous survey, which we just completed recently, so that any adjustments can be made. And then in looking at this timeline, at the end, the election day is set for Tuesday, November 8th. So at this point, I'll turn over to John Morstead for more details on the funding details part of the presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent McIntyre. So this little graph you're looking at here is we'll call it the very, very basic version of funding sources that the district receives. So this shows our last year's funding sources in a bar graph format, and then includes predicted funding sources for the next 7 school years. This, of course, is based on information that we have today, could change. The graph shows you what would happen if the board did not take any action whatsoever. With our current operating or capital levies, as you can see, is these levies would expire just before the 24-25 school year, we would see a big drop in funding, and that would continue moving forward. The drop is approximately $43 million each year. This is reflected in that orange kind of shaded area at the top. Federally speaking, elementary and secondary school emergency relief funding, also known as ESSER, increases slightly and then significantly drops off for the 24-25 school year, as we have exhausted all ESSER funds at that point. It's important to note that ESSER 1, 2, and 3 are all one-time dollars. These were dollars intended to help stave off the increased costs of the pandemic. They're not, here's a bunch of money that was given to school districts that didn't have an offsetting cost to go with it, or didn't have an offsetting need that grew because of the pandemic. It's important to recognize that, because there's a lot of conversation around schools got a ton of free money. We also had increased costs. And it's important to acknowledge that those were there, and the needs that we have to serve increased dramatically because of that pandemic. These funds are being used to provide services in alignment with school board and community priorities and do not have a long-term funding source. These funds should not be considered a replacement for operating levies, the operating levy provides about $35 million annually over a 10-year period, and is directed to maintain academic programming and student service supports. This is reflected in the lighter blue shaded area in the graph, which represents a drop of a little more than $20 million annually. More specifically, ESSER 2 fundings include approximately $12 million, $7 million of which was invested in a little over 20 FTEs of staff for 2 years. And that actually ends with this school year that we're in right now. Those staff are academic intervention and supports for struggling scholars in math and reading. Student services and support included including special education, English learners programming, and homeless services, and then mental health services and supports, which include school counselors, social workers, clinical and therapeutic services, and staff. ESSER 3 funding is about $23.5 million. What that includes is a continuation of those 20 FTEs of staff from ESSER 2, along with an additional approximately 66 FTEs of staff. And that's what that funding is going to cover over the next 2 years, starting with the next fiscal year. Combined, this is funding for staff that provide critical services and supports for our scholars that will end shortly. An increase to the operating cap or limit set in state statute would close that gap when that funding goes away, along with providing resources to schools to offset the impact on services caused by a reduction in compensatory revenue. The bottom of the graph shows Referendum 1, which is the proposed timeline that the operating and capital levy questions would be presented to voters. So they would be presented in November of '23 and would take effect. If you see the next part down at the bottom of the 23-24 school year, that's when the dollars become available to the district. This graph would not have a financial cliff or drop in funding should these questions be approved in a vote. As we look at the operating levy, and was shared earlier, we're approaching year 9 of our current operating levy. The fiscal involvement school community accountability liaisons, or fiscal, has discussed the need to move forward the operating referendum to voters and is in support of doing so. As we discuss the operating levy, you'll hear and see per pupil or student dollar figures and total dollar figures. The reason is operating levies are based on student enrollment. The district will also use an average home value number when we're presenting tax impact. The value number the district will use is $250,000 to communicate that potential tax impact. This number is based on the most recent data available from Hennepin County that includes the average assessed cost of single-family homes and townhomes within our district for all residential properties covering all 6 cities that are represented in our district. A couple of items to note. Townhomes are really becoming a large portion of our community. Maple Grove alone has about 7,500 townhomes and about 16,000 single-family homes. In the next 10 to 12 years, the city of Maple Grove is projecting that for every new single-family home built, they will build 2.5 either townhomes or apartments in relation. So the smaller units are becoming more popular. And that's really what drives that rate. So when we're saying, hey, the average or median home value, that middle number is $250,000, we're not saying that everybody's house is $250,000 and your tax impact is based on that. We're just picking the middle number that we know is an average. And the tools to be able to educate all of our taxpayers on what is your number for your home will be available through the information that we'll provide if given direction to move forward. The other piece I wanted to mention is, you know, our district, the commercial growth in our district has been robust, to say the least. Commercial growth is great for residential taxpayers because it spreads that tax out. So we talked about an operating levy. Our current one is about $1,650 per pupil. Well, that creates a dollar amount, and then they take what's the value of your district and they spread it out. As new properties come online and we see construction all over, you see more growth. That makes all those values of the property grow, and that tax level kind of flattens and spreads. So in reality, the more commercial you put in, the more you reduce from a residential perspective. Mind you, that also increases the overall value of the district, and the capital projects levy is based on a percentage of that. So that one comes up where this one comes down. It's a balancing act. And that's, as a district, it's our job to try to make sure that that impact is reasonable and appropriate, and we're doing things in the best interest of our taxpayers. You'll see in the proposed ballot language in the next few minutes that our team is recommending that we do go to the allowed limit or cap, which again I mentioned was set by the state legislature. Ellers, which is the district's financial advisor, estimates an increase of $359.47 per pupil to reach the cap. That would generate approximately $7.9 million annually above our current authorization. The priorities for these funds would be to continue and strengthen day-to-day learning and instructional operations, individualized learning, instructional intervention, including multi-tiered systems of support, and mental health needs that are currently being funded with one-time dollars. This increase would also help to mitigate budget cuts that are anticipated to begin in the 23-24 school year. And then finally, the increase would include the cost of operations for future facility buildings that would be part of phase 2 of the Building a Better Future campaign. And an update on that will be presented to the board at the May work session.
As we talk about the capital projects levy, you'll hear and see percentages. The reason for this is the capital projects levy are based on net tax capacity. You'll see in the proposed ballot language in the next few slides that our team is recommending we increase our capital projects levy by 1%. So we go from 3.7% to 4.7%. This would generate an additional $2.3 million, bringing the total to $11.1 million annually. This increased need is to address several identified This increases need is to address several identified and emerging technology needs for the long term. Moving forward, looking at the priorities and why we're looking at an increase as discussed in the last work session, first we want to ensure that we're maintaining our current technology operations and infrastructure, which our existing tech levy has been operationalized around. When we look at going beyond what we currently have funding for, we're looking at where we've got some tight strains and needing some long-term sources to support the technology needs. One of those areas being safety and security. So in one aspect, we've spent a lot of money through a lot of grants and one-time funds to improve our security cameras, door access, visitor access management, all that have gone into a digital technology landscape and need long-term funding in order to ensure that we can maintain that infrastructure and maintain the systems that we put in place. Also, as we look forward, cybersecurity is becoming increasing need within our system. When we think about our original tech levy 10 years ago, cybersecurity wasn't as prevalent of a need as it is now today, with the vast amount of curriculum, information, and digital processes that we do as a system. So we need to make sure that we're providing sound investments in cybersecurity tools and infrastructure to make sure that we're protecting our technology systems. As we talk about next generation learning spaces and we talk about phase 2 and where we're looking at redesign of what instructional spaces look like, we need some capacity in order to make sure that we have technology that allows for the flexibility within those next generation learning spaces. Some of the concepts that we've explored and looked at and are existing in the Rice Lake edition is a lot of flexible and movable furniture that allows teachers to look at different ways to design instructional learning spaces and shift and move those daily based on the needs of the learning that is going to occur. We also need to make sure that as we equip those spaces, we're looking at and considering the technology needs, in particular of teachers being able to wirelessly connect and be mobile in those classroom spaces as well to their digital displays and other applications within that space. One of the other components that we're looking at with this increased funding is equitable technology access. Through the pandemic, we have really identified some of the equity needs of when technology goes home and being able to make sure that our students have reliable connectivity to those devices and internet access when they go home. We've been using ESSER dollars to provide that stopgap where there might be some equity challenges in terms of technology access at home, so ensuring that we have a permanent funding stream to help support that in the long term. As well as our infrastructure. So much of our infrastructure is starting to age. Much of it was put in 10 years ago when we first passed the bond. Our wide area network, which is our fiber connections that connect all our sites together, is actually going on 20 years old. We're starting to see the age of some of that infrastructure and making sure that we have a solid funding source to start adequate maintenance and maintaining the support of keeping a robust infrastructure in place for our technology systems.
The next few slides will talk about the proposed ballot language. Administration is proposing a revoke and replace. It technically ends the current authorization at 9 years, would start a new 10-year authorization in Pay 2023, and then begins fiscal year 2024 and runs through fiscal year 2033. This would essentially be an increase going to the authorized limit or cap. The timing, however, starts a year ahead of schedule, so in essence, we stop what we're currently doing and start fresh. Voters would be presented with a total of 2 questions. This is what voters would see on their ballot for question 1. After consulting with outside legal counsel, we understand that school districts are very limited on how they can legally present this information, so the language is not able to change with what you see here. Of note is that the figure on this operating question is based on a per pupil or student breakdown and dollar figures associated with that. So operating levy totals are based on student enrollment. This is what voters would see on their ballot for question 2. After consulting with outside counsel, we understand that school districts are able to share a description of some kind for capital project questions. The orange lines on here, they're a little faint, so hopefully you can see them okay, reflect the portion of the question that we had a little description to. There we mentioned that the funds are going to be used for the acquisition and installation of improved instructional technology, safety and security technology, systems for the technology infrastructure, and technology support staffing. This has been modified slightly from what you saw 2 weeks ago. Capital projects are based on net tax capacity, so this is why you're seeing percentages as a focal point instead of dollar figures.
So board members, as you know, we've had a number of engagements on this topic, and as you can see, there's already been a lot of planning and work that's brought us at least to this point. Our next steps are highlighted on this slide here, which tonight is the board's determination on setting a direction. Then next at the April 12th work session, we'll talk about the informational campaign in greater detail. The facility planning portion of the Building a Better Future will have an update to share on May 24th. Then at least by the August board meeting, a potential tweak or revision to that dollar figure will likely be needed for the operating cap because that information isn't shared by Minnesota Department of Education until about the middle to end of July. So depending on the timing of that, we think it's likely the August meeting just because of that late July window of when we might get that information. So with that, Chair Dawson Walton, I'll turn it back to you regarding the action on the proposed resolution.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution relating to revoking and replacing the existing referendum revenue authorization of the school district?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Brady, seconded by Director Brooks. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. So for the portion of language that was changed, or modified slightly, I think is what you said, can you tell us why the specific items were listed in that order and if there's any reasoning behind that?
I know one of the pieces that we didn't have in there before that our survey signified was safety and security in regards to technology. So that's why it was kind of toward the top of that list, and we added that in and just made things, I would say, just a little easier maybe to understand for our community.
I'm wondering if there's an emphasis when people are reading it on the item that comes first, if that is important to readers, and how they might vote if we have it worded a certain way. So if that's a really high importance level, if rearranging it is appropriate or not appropriate. Can you speak to
Definitely, I mean, I would say order is important for sure. I mean, it's definitely a consideration. I mean, that's the area where we can put, a little description, and you're not obviously able to do that on the operating, so it's definitely important that we get it the right way.
So in order of importance from what we know from our voters and what our needs are these in any specific order? Or would we consider modifying that before we approve it based on what is most important?
We could potentially modify it, but I'm maybe gonna turn it to Anthony if he has a particular order that he would.
Yeah, I would say at this time, what's in there is they're of equal importance across the board, so there isn't one particular order that's gonna have more priority over one of the other.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Comments, questions?
So, just to clarify, as we discuss this and think about it, so we have not moved this in 10 years, in 9 years. So when we talk about going up to the max, to me, we haven't touched this for 10 years. So it makes sense to me to be thoughtful and to be ahead of the game and saying, what are we gonna need for that next foreseeable period of time, which is also quite lengthy with that next 10-year period, rather than coming back to the taxpayers and saying a little more, a little more, a little more. So to me, I find this very fiscally prudent, to be thoughtful as to what we need for the long term. So to me, that was something that was really standing out in our conversations and discussion along the way. And I think when we do ask the voters to support our revenue needs, I think it's also important that we're looking at the big picture and all of the work that is done for cost containment as well. So while we kind of have these discussions at different points, sometimes it's difficult to see the entire picture and all the pieces. And in our last discussions about the budget, we do talk about the PAIR process. We talk about how we stay within a targeted % increase, how we make choices, how we need to take reductions in one space in order to fund what we need in other parts of the district. So I'm very proud of the financial processes that this district has in order to balance the cost containment and really keep a moderate level of expense growth in the district, and then be prudent when we do ask for revenue. So that's my comments in having, I guess, evaluated this and thought through it. Again, I do encourage the public to go back and look at all of the financial discussions so that all of the pieces can be put together for tonight's discussion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, I just wanted to, the team, you guys, they've done so much due diligence, as Director Simons said, and the reason this is so important tonight, because it does have a long-term impact on our district, and these investments are very intentional, and it's about, like you said, the learning needs and centering on our operating capital costs, and that's from the day-to-day learning to, safety and security, equitable technology access, and I know, I think about this process, and it is about having a successful referendum, but it's about building trust in our community and ensuring that our caregivers and families and community members and scholars are engaged throughout this transparent process. And I really think this is well thought out, really well planned investment, and it will position us to plan for the bold future that we all want for our district. And I think even especially after listening tonight too, when Director Mosquito Jones asked our student school board representatives from the various high schools, it's even more affirming, and that this is the right direction that will position us for success. So thank you so much. So I guess we'll take a vote now. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, motion passes 6-0. Thank you. The next action is a resolution denouncing racial harm in athletics and calling for renewed athletic codes of conduct that value each and every scholar. Before we do the motion to approve, I'm just going to read the resolution. Whereas the Osseo Area School Board values their scholars and those participating in athletic and extracurricular activities, and whereas blatant racism, cultural disrespect, and microaggressions at athletic and extracurricular activities in Minnesota are not new, and whereas these actions are directly counter to the values of the Osseo Area School District, and whereas as school board directors, we are deeply disturbed by the persistent and pervasive racism against community members who are Black, Indigenous people of color during athletic and extracurricular activities and events, and whereas we are entrusted to prepare young people for better futures through an equitable education, including an understanding of our democracy and commitment to equality and justice for all, and whereas athletic competition in its very nature, expression of the human spirit, are meant to be a representation and celebration of the gifts, skills, and talents of every scholar and athlete, and whereas we are committed to ensuring our scholars do not experience trauma and harm while participating in athletic and extracurricular activities both in our district and when visiting other districts. Whereas every scholar, coach, parent, caregiver, and community member should feel confident and safe to attend athletic and extracurricular activities in any district, and whereas a safe environment is one that is free of bullying, racial slurs, cultural disrespect, microaggressions, and other forms of bias and harassment, whereas our district value, intrinsic value expressly states that each scholar, staff member, and family is valued and respected for their perspective, experience, and contributions, whereas our district values of honor and integrity expressly state that we will hold ourselves, each other, and our system to the highest standards to create the best conditions for learning, whereas our school district can and will be a place of safety in our community and a beacon of light for other school districts and communities as we build and strengthen trust with the school district community we serve. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Osseo Area School Board as follows. We denounce all discriminatory behavior and harassment by scholars, staff, and fans during athletic and extracurricular activities, and that we listen to, believe, and uplift the voices of our scholars when they share their experiences with racism, microaggressions, and cultural disrespect while participating in athletic and extracurricular activities, and that we partner with the Minnesota State High School League and other educational partners to enact policies to prevent, report, and address, enforce against, and hold people and institutions accountable for these harmful acts, and that we call for all school districts across Minnesota to review and renew their athletic codes of conduct to embody the highest standards of sportsmanship and athletic character, expressly stating respectful behavior by athletes, staff, and spectators, and that we urge communities across the state to enact, enforce, and clearly communicate policies and practices to ensure that scholars, staff, and community members who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color are safe and supported when participating in athletic and extracurricular activities in all of our communities. Is there a motion to approve the resolution denouncing racial harm in athletics and calling for renewed athletic codes of conduct that value each and every scholar?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great, motion by, it was like
Everybody?
a chorus or something. I'll give to Director Brooks. Seconded by Director Simons. Is there any discussion? Do you have anything to say?
I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts of the board in partnership with not only the district statement, but the efforts that we're trying to make at the conference level, the region level, the state level with the high school league, and then I understand there's even a couple bills being introduced at the legislature around the same topic. So all those efforts in concert is what it's gonna take to make the kind of change we need to see.
Yeah, I'll keep it short because I'm thinking this is unanimous support for this. So I want to thank Chair Dawson Walton for bringing this forward. I know that this has been on the list for quite some time. I just wanted to just state the importance of the district, our district, and going off of what Faith said earlier today, making sure that we are action oriented. I know that there is so much that has been happening behind the scenes through, Chair Dawson Walton, through the superintendent, the athletic directors. There's been a lot of talking and coordinating behind the scenes with other districts, with our students, with staff. But I want to make sure that it doesn't stop at talking. I think we have a tendency to talk about these things until we get distracted by the next big thing. And so for me, I know that we're calling on other districts to, for very specific actions. We're knowing the athletic codes was a big one. Embodying the highest standards of sportsmanship and athletic character, sort of all of those things, but we need to also make sure that we're doing that same thing. And to Faith's point, let's not wait for the Minnesota State High School League or any other district to come up with whatever that model is. I think we should start working on that ourselves and be a leader. Additionally, I just wanted to point out that, Faith also mentioned this as well. This resolution came about because there were some incidents that caught wind on social media. But we know, most of us know that these types of incidents have happened for decades. I mean, going back to when I was a child and even before. We know that they happen in and outside of athletic events. They happen in our community and they happen in our schools. So to my previous point, let's make sure that we're staying cognizant of that, the racism that is in our communities and in our schools, that we are putting forth effort to educate our staff, keeping up with training, to educate our students, to allow those safe spaces, and again, continuing to be action-oriented and not waiting for the next big incident or social media incident to catch wind that we then have to immediately react to again, when we know all along that these things are happening. But other than that, again, thank you for bringing this forward and for the work that went into it. Thank you, Superintendent and staff, for the work in meeting with our scholars and really hearing their voices and getting their experiences. And I look forward to any sort of progress we can make on this.
I want to add that, I don't know if the public knows that Superintendent McIntyre has been working very closely with the Minnesota State High School League since he's a part of the leadership there on bringing this forward and making sure that there is action. So I want to again commend our Chair Dawson Walton for bringing it forward and for working with AMSD on this, and Superintendent McIntyre for making sure that that this actually has some tread behind it. So I appreciate the two of you taking the lead on that. And Director Brooks, I agree. Let's go forward.
So I would add that, to me, when we talk about, I think it's very important that we're very clear about what we will not tolerate for our student athletes to experience in our district or anywhere else that they go. And I think it's as important for us to be very declarative as to what we stand for and what we expect, which is the character that athletics is meant to build and to exemplify. When we think about, of all places where everybody has an opportunity to showcase their skill and talent that is beyond racial, beyond the exterior, athletics is that place. Athletics is that place where everybody comes and everybody demonstrates their ability and should be celebrated for that. To me, that's of all places. And this is, in my opinion, have an impact on, because our coaches, our athletic directors, I was very uplifted by our scholars at the last board meeting describing the expectations that our athletic directors, principals, and coaches place with them and cultivate in them when we're playing one another. And I think that is really what we want to be to Minnesota and to every place that our athletes go and our teams go. So to me, this is something that we can change because our coaches set the tone, our athletic directors set the tone. Fans can be removed from a game, from an event. We can have an impact on this. This isn't something we say we don't have an impact on. Coaches can see behaviors and say this is not going to be accepted and remove students from teams. So to me, that this is something that we can work toward. When I looked at some of the student feedback, the positives of being on a team, of being family to one another, that's what we want to be. That's what we want to cultivate on our teams. So to me, this was really about not only saying what we will not stand for, but saying what we want to be and what we can be. So not just what we want to be, but what we can be through our policies, through how we cultivate character. And I think many families, when we talk about why do we even have sports, it is because it builds character. And it builds many different attributes that are beneficial. So to me, that's why I really felt it was important to participate in this and to be explicit about what we do stand for.
And if I can add, a lot of this too is it's about who we are as a community, and our scholars are asking for us, all of us as adults, to stand up for them, with them, and listen to them and follow through with the actions that are embedded in 400 years of ugly history. And it requires each and every one of us to have these conversations with each other and with our children so that we understand that intentions don't matter as much as words and the harm that they cause, and that we as adults, that we can show our scholars that we can hold each other and students and caregivers and parents and all accountable for the kinds of harms that are done to students, because we do, as a district, have that mission of making sure that each and every scholar is safe and supported in their learning environment. And that is what we are going to continue to do. And with this resolution also calls on all of our communities and our neighboring districts to follow through and partner with us so that we can solve these longstanding problems together, so that each and every scholar can move forward in the future and reach their highest potential. Thank you so much for all of your work on this.
Well, I mean, everybody said a lot of the things I was going to say, but one thing I really wanted to say is I think that, you know, we're putting this on paper right now and we're calling for action and support from other parts of our community and our state. But the one thing I really want to highlight is what I see in our district amongst our students is they're already doing it. They've been doing a lot of this already, the work, and I am so proud of our students, and for them to continue to engage on this just speaks volumes about the type of leaders that they're going to be when they move on from us. And so I just really wanted to highlight that, in addition to, you know, I agree with everything else that was said here. So.
Awesome. You know, what strikes me when I listen to our student reps is the pride comes with the athletics and extracurriculars. I mean, they love for sure the academics. I'm not taking that away, teachers. But you know, when you can see the excitement or the rivalry, I mean, that's that spirit, that school spirit, and that essence, you see that. And I was at my own daughter's high school basketball banquet, and the seniors graduating did their speeches, and it was really about the lessons they learned and how they're carrying them in their life. So that building character piece, and it was, I was like crying at every single speech. So, it was amazing, you know. So, and I'm just really proud of, I just think, you know, our district, Superintendent McIntyre, your team, the athletic director, coordinators, they really came together with these student sessions, and they were really well thought out. And the scholars, are just looking at the feedback, were very much heard, and they talked about all the ways that this has been positive, and then areas of like, man, that wasn't so great, but and then very solution oriented, like this is what could be better. And so I think that was awesome. And I just think as a board, I mean, this resolution, everybody contributed to this resolution, which was awesome, you know, and so it really does, we're, you know, taking a unified stance. So thank you to each of my colleagues as well, and to, of course, all of our scholars. And is there, oh, well, now we're in the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, motion passes 6-0. Gifts to the district. The final action item is approval of gifts to the district totaling $16,330.90. Is there a motion to approve gifts to the district in the amount of $16,330.90?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Director Skeena-Jones, seconded by Director Douglas. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say, I just want to point out that one of the, as usual, their booster contributions was, I don't think we can ever thank them enough for the amount they give to our schools. But there's a newer organization called Maple Grove Giving that has been collecting different things for different schools, and it's just a great highlight of how our community comes together to help each other. And even though it's called Maple Grove Giving, they donate throughout the entire school district. So I just wanted to highlight that. If there's anyone that is on social media, check them out, because they're always posting needs on there.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. At this time, the board will be taking a brief recess and then reconvening in the forum room for a closed session. The session will be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13B.03 for labor negotiations with teachers and principal. There's a motion to recess the regular meeting for 10 minutes and reconvene in the forum room for a closed session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Skeena-Jones, seconded by Director Brooks. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Meeting is recessed at 7:27 p.m. School board will return at the conclusion of